alcohol and drugs provides, because we do have that guide, as you said. Instead, a truly godly person has found all that he needs is Christ. Drunkenness is first mentioned in connection with Noah, and it's been a problem for humanity ever since then. Alcohol itself is not evil. I want you to understand, alcohol itself is not evil. In fact, I mentioned a minute ago, it has a lot of good medicinal purposes. When I was growing up, I'm going to tell this story, Bill. When I was growing up, my mama used to rub Jack Daniels on our gums when we were teething. She would put Jack Daniels in our ear when we had an earache. And you know why? Because there was 4 of us kids growing up, and we didn't have a lot of money, and Mama would take us to the doctor, and Dr. McClellan, I never will forget him, he told my mama, he goes, listen, he goes, I can give you a prescription for the earaches and to clear this up. He goes, but if you'll just put a little whiskey in their ears, it's the alcohol that's in the medicine that breaks the wax up that helps. So that's what Mama did. And I remember all the way until I left the house, there was a bottle of Jack Daniels or rum or something sitting underneath the kitchen sink next to the Clorox and all the other harmful chemicals. I never once touched it, never once had a desire to touch it, because it was for earaches, and earaches only. But when it's used as a beverage for the purpose of escaping reality, it produces an evil effect. Let's look at Proverbs chapter 20, verse 1, and then let's look at chapter 23, and let's look at verses 19 through 21. Proverbs 21 says, wine is a mocker, strong drink is raging, and whosoever is deceived thereby is not wise. We're supposed to be praying for wisdom, right? Skip over to Proverbs 23. Verse 19 says, hear thou, my son, and be wise, and guide thine heart in the way. Be not among wine bibbers, among riotous eaters of flesh. Drunkard and the glutton shall set. Speak. Roof. This section begins with 3 simple truths about alcohol and any other substance that's used as an intoxicant. I don't want you to think that I'm just talking about alcohol this morning. First, the wine is mocking the one who uses it. The wine's never changed by the one who drinks it, but the one who drinks it is changed by the wine. Second, strong drink or any substance that has the strength to alter human behavior is raging. What do you think of when you hear that word raging? Anger. Raging means acting without control. The idea is that whoever is under the influence of the drug, they're not in control of their own bodies. And the third effect is that such substances are deceitful. They promise one thing but actually deliver another. And many lives have been changed for the worse by things people have done while they were under the influence of some type of substance. I often when sobriety returns, the drug user or the drinker does not even remember what he said or done. Yet his life can be ruined. And it's not difficult to see that just having wisdom to stay away from that stuff is good. The warning is to take charge of your own life. Take charge of your own life and your own heart. And this literally means to offer yourself some guidance and to take your own good advice. The good advice is to avoid others who use alcohol as an intoxicant. Mama used to say, if you lay down with dogs, you're going to get fleas one day. If you hang around people who are drinking, you're going to be forced to drink or you're going to be tempted to drink. That's just it. The good advice is to avoid others who use alcohol, and to be among them, you're going to be tempted. You're going to be tempted to join in their excess. If you don't want to be drunk, stay away from the places that serve alcohol. If you don't want to drink it, do not have alcohol in your home. It seems simple, don't it? But many people mingle every day with the temptations to drink alcohol, thinking that they're strong enough to resist any temptation. I want you to remember that Jesus taught us to pray that we will not be led into temptation, Matthew 6:13. And there's some strong language that's being used here. If someone were threatening to eat you, literally to devour your flesh, like the Scripture says, you'd be wise to avoid that person at all costs. Alcohol abuse is likened to this situation. Substance abuse is likened to this situation. The person who offers you a substance or an alcoholic drink is never acting in your best interest at all. A true friend would advise you to refuse such a drink or such a substance. I've had many so-called friends, evidently, in my life. Drunkenness, gluttony, and laziness will bring ruin to any human life. And sadly, they're often socially acceptable. How many Christmas parties have you been to where alcohol was there for every... The first thing that was probably offered to you when you walked in the door was a drink. Gluttony is another road to poverty. Gluttony refers to the excess and unrestrained eating habits. It has nothing to do with body size or weight, okay? A glutton is intemperate to his own eating habits, in the same way that a drunkard is in his drinking. Both take the same road to poverty. Either sin will lead to indulgence at the neglect or more serious needs. You know, folks, we got to eat, don't we? It's hard to maintain this good figure. We have to eat. I lost my place. My good figure, yes. Either sin is going to lead to indulgence at the neglect or more serious needs. Of course, we need to eat to fuel our bodies, but folks, we can let this simple need be perverted into an end in itself. Right now, it's Christmas time. And I love Christmas cookies. I like the chocolate chip ones. I like the sugar ones. I like the sugar ones that you put icing on after they've dried. And then after that, you can put little sprinkly things on top. And they just keep getting better and better. Julie has baked cookies. How many times have you baked cookies, babe? Like 3 times. And how many cookies do we actually put in the Tupperware with a piece of... Not very many. Because I eat them faster than they come out of the oven. We do. And she puts a slice of bread in with the cookies to keep them fresh. And it makes them even more moisture. Sometimes I'm a little guilty of gluttonous when the Christmas cookies are coming out of the oven. We put 24 in and I eat 20 of them. We might put 4 in the Tupperware, right? They're just just so good. Well, they're small, okay? I don't want you to think they're great big old cookies. They're little bitty ones, all right? Well, that's where I'm going with this because when I'm all done, I walk inside the living room and I sit down in the chair and I look at her and I'm like, I shouldn't have done that. And I'm miserable the rest of the night. And the third ruin is laziness, the scripture says. A lazy man will be sleeping when he should be working. Folks, there's no substitute to being active. Let me tell you something as you get older. I know I'm not the oldest person in here. When you quit moving, you start to really die. The best thing you can do as you get older is to be active. Whether that be walk down the driveway to the mailbox and get the mail, or in our case, the street, or just get up and move. Being active. When you quit being active, I believe your body really starts to deteriorate, especially as we get older. You think you're home? Let's look at the result of ungodly living. In Proverbs 23 now, let's look at verses 29 through 32. It says, Who hath woe? Who hath sorrow? Who hath contentions? Who hath babbling? Who hath wounds without cause? Who hath redness of eyes? They that tarry long at the wine, they that go to seek mixed wine. Look not thou upon the wine when it is red, when it giveth his color in the cup, when it moveth itself aright. At the last it biteth like a serpent, and stingeth like an adder. One of Satan's persistent lies is that we can sin without impunity. And what I mean by that is he tells people that they can do the things God has forbidden them to do, and not only will they enjoy the sin, but they'll also not pay any penalty for that sinful action. And that's just simply not true. Whatever pleasure there may be in sin, it's for a very short season. The 20 out of the 24 cookies that I ate was great while I was doing it. But I paid for it the rest of the evening because I made myself sick. And that's just simple. That's just cookies, folks. We're not talking about wine or liquor or marijuana or any other drug. We're talking about Christmas cookies. Whatever pleasure there may be in sin, it's just for a short season, and there will follow a long time of regret and heartache. And in the end, no one will be glad that they disobeyed the Lord. And one of the reasons that I have this big thing with cookies is I'm a type 2 diabetic now. So I really shouldn't even be touching a cookie unless it's a sugar-free cookie. But have y'all ever ate a sugar-free cookie? It's like cardboard. This section is introduced with questions. That's the first thing that this section is introduced with, is by questions that describe the condition of the person who became drunk. And I want to note that this list cannot be read backwards. Alcohol will cause these results, but not everyone this describes got that way from drinking alcohol. For instance, we can be sorrowful when alcohol plays no part at all in the sorrow. Our eyes could be red from a sandstorm, right? The point is that there is a cause and effect between alcohol consumption and the mental and physical harm. 3 of these are mental and 3 are physical. Woe, or a sense of discontent and sorrow and contentions, are basically mental in nature. To be sure, these will affect those around us in physical ways, but they're born out of a mind of a drunkard. Babbling or incoherent speech, wounds with no cause, and red eyes are physical results of being drunk. Have you ever seen somebody that was just, the word that we would use is wasted? Alcohol has harmful effects on both our minds and our bodies. And this should be a warning to anyone who thinks that consuming alcohol beverages is going to not bring them harm. The harm is brought to those who linger over alcohol and seek a stronger kind of intoxication by mixing two kinds of alcohol together. Most people, when they start drinking, it starts off small. And then it just progresses to something else. Mixed drinks. They just keep getting stronger and stronger and stronger. People who take those drinks relish about alcohol consumption for itself, noting the color of the wine, perhaps even the odor or the taste. And to this person, alcohol consumption has become an end to itself, in addition to the intoxication that it has a certain result. What seems like a harmless activity, taking a social drink or enjoying an alcoholic beverage with others, is in the end like being bitten by a snake. And I'm going to tell you something. I don't know how y'all feel about snakes. I have no use for them, any of them. Only a foolish person would voluntarily be bitten by a snake. Most of us avoid snakes, knowing that nothing pleasant is going to result from an interaction with them. Knowing that we are dealing with poisonous serpents, the Scripture says, we'll take another path to take a measure to keep ourselves at a safe distance from creatures. We get these little garter snakes at the house. They're about this big. I don't even like playing with those. Matter of fact, I got one the other day and I stuck it in a little mason jar and I poured some diesel fuel in there. I have no use for them. That thing tried to bite me the entire time I was trying to stick it in the mason jar. Like this. I did it you ever seen those trash picker-uppers? That's what I picked it up with. I didn't want to get nowhere, and it was only that long, folks. That's right. You may get bitten by a snake and recover. I know guys that have been bitten by snakes, and they recovered from it. But your first snake bite could also kill you. When I go hunting down in Alabama, my brother's got timber rattlers on his property. I can show you some pictures after Sunday school. Mike's about 5'10", and he's holding up a snake like this, and it's just as tall as he is. And it's about that big around. And the thing about hunting in South Alabama at this time of year is the snakes are still active. So I invested in a good pair of snake boots to go deer hunting in. Because I don't want to get bitten by a snake. The good thing about timber rattlers are you'll hear them before you see them. And when you hear them, I just automatically turn around and go the opposite way. I don't care if there's a bush or a tree in my way. It's getting out of my way. I'm not going where I heard those little rattles. An important point to make here is that no one has to drink alcohol. We can stay away from it. We can live long, happy lives and never even consume the chemical. A man who has never been drunk has not missed anything in life. On the other hand, there are a multitude of problems, both mental and physical, that can come from the use of alcohol. And that seems very simplistic, I know. But the best way to avoid the problems that result from using alcohol is just to avoid it altogether. I knew a guy in the Navy. I never really met anybody who was an alcoholic until I joined the Navy. I'll tell you a sea story right quick like. I worked in a steam plant, and we had deck grates that you could look down and you could see the deck below you. And we had different watch stations. And one of the watch stations we had was called the upper levelman. And his job was to stand up there at the water level of the steam drum and make sure that it stayed at normal. And that's his only job, was to watch that water level. If that water level started getting too high, he was supposed to report. Hey, if it was getting too low, he was supposed to report. The upper levelman was very important because nobody could see the water level that was in that boiler except for him. I can't even remember the guy's name now. But we had lit off. And when he would take watch, he would sit up there on a rag bucket's what we called it, like a 5-gallon bucket metal that we had rags in. He'd sit there and he'd spread newspaper out like this, to where when you looked up there, you really couldn't see him. He couldn't leave that spot, but it was like he was reading the newspaper. and he would always fall asleep. And that's something you didn't do in the military, was fall asleep on watch. And BT1 one time, the messenger was going around taking readings, and he came back to the boiler technician of the watch, and he said, "Hey, BT1," he goes, "he's sleeping up there." BT1 went and got the torch that we'd light the boiler off with, because it was about 10 feet long and you could stick it up to the next deck. He lit that torch off, and he stuck it up there to burn that guy's newspaper and catch it on fire while he was sitting there. Problem was he had a water bottle full of vodka. So when the paper caught fire, it lit that bottle off, and there was a big fireball. The guy was an alcoholic, and he had brought vodka on board because he couldn't make it a 2-week course without drinking something. That is sad, folks. Which brings us to forsaking sense and sanity. Proverbs 23, verses 32 through 35 says, "Thine eyes shall behold strange women, and thine heart shall utter perverse things. Yea, thou shalt be as he that lieth down in the midst of the sea, or he that lieth upon the top of the mast. They have stricken me, shalt thou say, and I was not sick. They have beaten me, and I felt it not. When shall I wake? I will seek it yet again." The effects of sin are very cumulative here. They add up. And the need for sin is an increasing spiral that leads to destruction. Just like that guy who was standing watch up there. He couldn't stay away from the alcohol, so he tried to hide it with a newspaper and a water bottle. You know, when you see advertisements for alcohol, you always see people enjoying themselves. You never see the crash that killed somebody. You never see the passed out in the gutter. You never see the battered spouse or the neglected children. You only see the good times. You see beautiful people having a good time, holding on to an alcoholic beverage while they do so. No alcohol ad has ever pictured the awful effects of the abuse of that drug. And these verses tell us the truth about some of the conduct that results from drinking alcohol as a beverage. You know, first one on the list is a distortion of vision. Things and people who normally look strange will seem to be familiar. Thoughts that we normally might squelch will come to a fruition into our hearts. We got to remember here that the human beings, folks, are not basically good people. You know what human beings are? They're basically sinners. They're sinners by nature. There is evil in any and every human being, and when the normal inhibitions of life are removed, sin then comes to the surface. There's nothing that men and women will not do while under the influence of alcohol or drugs. I've been drunk. I'll be honest with you. I've been there. I was in the Navy for 10 and a half years. I never had a drop of alcohol until I joined the Navy. I shouldn't have joined the Navy. I should have joined the Air Force. I wasn't smart enough to get in the Air Force. I'm sure they drank in the Air Force too. That's the one thing I told Dustin when he went in the Marine Corps. I said, "Son, I'm proud of you. I think it's an honorable thing to do." I said, "But there's one thing that you need to do if you want to have a long military career, and that's to stay away from alcohol. It's going to be hard to do, and I doubt you're going to be able to do it. But that's the key to being successful." And it's not just in the military, it's in life in general. Folks, these foolish actions will lead to consequences when sobriety returns. There will be an impairment of health without the presence of disease. That is, a drunk will appear to be the same as a person who has been grievously ill. You know what alcohol does to you? It eats at your liver. I can think of somebody right now who I've requested prayer for, who worked at the school district and doesn't work there anymore because They have cirrhosis of the liver because they drank too much in their previous life. It's sad. It's sad, but the real tragedy here is that alcohol is addictive. When the drunk regains his sobriety, he's going to seek to be drunk again and again. I knew a lot of guys in the Navy like that. First thing they wanted to do when they got off ship was go find the bar. Really? Well, let's go find a hamburger. Oh, wait, there's gluttony again. Let's just get off this thing that's doing this number right here and walk on dry land. When we went out to San Diego to watch Dustin graduate boot camp, it brought back a lot of memories because I can always spot somebody that's been on a ship. They walk like this. We went to Chick-fil-A. Remember going to Chick-fil-A out there? And those sailors would come in on lunch, and you could tell the ones that were stationed on board the ship because they all walked like this. I told Julie, I said, they're shipboard. They're stationed on board a ship. I don't know what ship they are, but they're stationed on board a ship. It's just the way they walk. Life takes a downward spiral where the only pleasure in life is being withdrawn from life in an alcohol-induced stupor. If you've got to escape from life, and the only way that you can find to escape from life is to crack open a cold one, you've got problems. I want to remember that this is not advice given by science or anything like that. These verses are not the comments of an observer or recommendations from a committee or some human behaviorist. This is the Word of God that's telling us to stay away from it. I'm not just talking about alcohol this morning. I'm talking about anything. People can go and have surgery and be diagnosed painkillers, and they can become addicted to the painkiller. And that's how they escape reality. It's anything, folks. God is not denying us any pleasure by asking us not to abuse. God is not denying us any pleasure by asking us not to abuse our bodies with alcohol or any other drug for that matter. Instead, He's trying to save us from almost unlimited misery. You can probably think of somebody right now, a friend or a family member, whose life has been affected by alcohol or substance abuse. I can think of a bunch right now. One simple truth should settle this matter for any child of God. There is no need for any effect of alcohol in heaven. It's not going to be needed there to ease and lubricate social interactions there. It's not needed there to escape the cares of the day or to help us have a good time. Folks, the conclusion is that a child of God does not need it on earth either. I don't need alcohol to have a good time. We had a great time last night at a church Christmas party. There was no alcohol served or anything. We stole from each other last night. We had a great time, didn't we? Some of y'all did, yes. I was good last night, Denny. I didn't steal your gift. You know why I didn't steal your gift? Because I knew Scott was going to take it. Everybody was stealing from you last night. You couldn't give yours away. Folks, if we're wise, we're going to hear and heed the warnings that we read about this morning and just simply avoid drugs and alcohol altogether. And when I say avoid them, I'm talking about avoid them to where we use them to help us escape reality. Not only alcohol, but also other chemicals. We will also avoid the situations that we're tempted to succumb to such things. And I'm going to say this about alcohol and drugs right now. We all know it's wrong. I'm preaching to the choir this morning. But this legalization of marijuana, folks, look at any city that's done it. Look at any state that's done it, and look at the crime rates. Look at the data. You want data? Look at that. Look at how the crime rates have gone up, the murders have gone up. Our society has lost so much common sense anymore. I don't even want to live near no one. I just want to live out in the woods by myself because it's ridiculous. But they'll give you all the good reasons on why it should be legalized. I'm going to tell you something. Marijuana leads to harder drug use. Just like beer leads to drinking a margarita or maybe a sip of whiskey, which then you mix the whiskey with Coke and rum, and the next thing you know, we're talking about the mixed drinks again. They just keep getting stronger and stronger. The drugs keep getting stronger and stronger, and the problems keep getting more and more and more. You lay down with dogs, you're going to get fleas. Lord, thank you for the day. Thank you for the meaningful lessons of the day. I pray and ask, dear Father, that you be with the prayer requests that we mentioned this morning, Lord, that you again provide healing where healing's needed, Lord, and comfort where comfort's needed. Please be with the rest of the service. Please forgive me my sins.